Sarah Mitchell sat in the pristine lobby of Harrison Industries, her 3-year-old son, Ethan, coloring quietly in a book beside her. At 29, Sarah had learned to prepare for every contingency, except the one where her babysitter would call in sick 30 minutes before the most important job interview of her life. She checked her watch. Again, 2:15 p.m. The interview was scheduled for 2:30, and she'd already called twice to explain her situation, hoping they might reschedule. Both times, she'd been told firmly that today was the only option. Sarah smoothed her only good suit, purchased second-hand but carefully tailored, and whispered to Ethan, "Remember what we talked about, sweetheart? Mama has an important meeting, and you're going to be my very best helper, okay?" Ethan nodded solemnly, his dark hair falling across serious brown eyes that seemed older than his years. "I'll be good, Mama, I promise." When Sarah's name was called, she stood with quiet dignity, took Ethan's hand, and approached the receptionist. "Mrs. Mitchell?" The young woman behind the desk looked pointedly at Ethan. "I'm sorry, but children aren't allowed in the interview area. Company policy." Sarah felt her carefully constructed composure beginning to crack. "I explained on the phone that my childcare fell through. I was told the interview couldn't be rescheduled. I don't have anywhere else to take him." The receptionist's expression remained coolly professional. "I understand your situation, but we simply cannot make exceptions. Perhaps you could reschedule for next week. The position will be filled by then," Sarah said quietly, fighting back tears of frustration. She had been out of work for 3 months, their savings depleted, and this job, assistant to the head of human resources, was exactly what she needed to get back on her feet. "I'm sorry," the receptionist repeated, already turning back to her computer. "Company policy is company policy." Sarah knelt down to Ethan's level, trying to figure out how to explain this disappointment to a 3-year-old who had already heard no too many times in his short life. "It's okay, Mama," Ethan whispered, patting her cheek with his small hand. "We'll try somewhere else." At that moment, the elevator doors opened and a man in his mid-40s stepped out, carrying a briefcase and moving with the confident stride of someone accustomed to being in charge. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit impeccably tailored. But what struck Sarah immediately was the kindness in his eyes as he took in the scene before him. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his voice carrying quiet authority. The receptionist immediately straightened. "Mr. Harrison, this woman brought her child to a job interview. I was explaining our policy about Sarah Mitchell." The man, apparently the CEO himself, interrupted, consulting his phone. "You're here for the HR assistant position?" "Yes, sir," Sarah said, standing slowly. "I apologize for the inconvenience. My child care arrangements fell through at the last minute, and I was told the interview couldn't be rescheduled. I understand if this disqualifies me." James Harrison looked down at Ethan, who was gazing up at him with curious, unafraid eyes. "And you must be Ethan," he said, extending his hand seriously to the little boy. "I'm Mr. Harrison. It's very nice to meet you." Ethan shook the offered hand with all the gravity a 3-year-old could muster. "Nice to meet you, too. Are you the boss man?" James smiled, the first genuine expression Sarah had seen from anyone in the building. "I suppose I am. And what do you think about your mama coming to work here?" "She's really good at helping people," Ethan said earnestly. "She helps me with everything, and she helps Mrs. Chen next door with her groceries. And she helped the man at the store when he couldn't find the cereal." "Ethan," Sarah said softly, embarrassed by her son's chatter, but James held up a hand. "No, I'd like to hear this. Tell me more about how your mama helps people, Ethan." For the next few minutes, Ethan regaled James with stories of Sarah's daily kindnesses, reading to elderly residents at their apartment complex, tutoring the neighbor's teenager in math, organizing a food drive at their church despite having very little herself. "She sounds like quite a remarkable person," James said, his eyes moving between Ethan and Sarah. "The kind of person who might be very good at helping people here, too." He turned to his receptionist. "Linda, could you set up the small conference room for us? And perhaps find some paper and crayons for our young guest?" "But, sir, the policy—" "I'm aware of our policies," James said calmly. "I'm also aware that sometimes the most important qualities a person can bring to a job can't be measured by traditional interview standards. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself in the most unusual job interview of her life. James asked thoughtful questions about her experience, while Ethan drew pictures at the other end of the conference table, occasionally contributing observations about his mother's character that were more insightful than most professional recommendations. "I have to be honest with you, Sarah," James said as the interview wound down. "This position is demanding. Long hours sometimes, difficult people to deal with, complex problems to solve. What makes you think you can handle it?" Sarah looked at her son, then back at James. "Mr. Harrison, I've been a single mother for 3 years. I've learned to manage a household budget on minimum wage, navigate healthcare systems, advocate for my son's needs, and solve problems with whatever resources I have available. I've learned to be patient, creative, and persistent. Most importantly, I've learned that treating people with dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstances, usually leads to better outcomes for everyone." She paused, gathering her courage. "I know bringing Ethan today wasn't professional, but I also know that turning away a candidate because of a childcare emergency doesn't give you the full picture of who they are or what they're capable of." James was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "You know, I started this company 20 years ago in my garage. My wife used to bring our daughter to meetings that were really just me and 2 other guys trying to figure out how to make payroll. Some of our best ideas came from those sessions where Emily was coloring in the corner, reminding us that we were building something not just for ourselves, but for our families." He leaned forward. "Sarah, I'd like to offer you the position. But I want you to know it's not because I felt sorry for your situation today. It's because you've demonstrated exactly the qualities we need: resourcefulness, grace under pressure, the ability to advocate for what's important, and most of all, genuine care for other people." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Mr. Harrison, Thank you. I won't let you down." "I don't think you could if you tried," he replied. "Oh, and Sarah? We have an excellent on-site childcare facility for employees. Ethan would be welcome here whenever you need it." 6 months later, Sarah had become one of the most valued members of the HR team, known for her ability to see the person behind the resume and for creating policies that supported working families. Ethan had thrived in the company childcare program, making friends and charming everyone from security guards to board members. One afternoon, James stopped by Sarah's desk where she was reviewing applications for a new position. "How's the candidate search going?" he asked. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about one of the applications," Sarah said. "She's perfect on paper, but she asked if she could bring her infant to the interview. Says she's nursing and can't find care for a few hours." James didn't hesitate. "Of course. Schedule it for the small conference room, and make sure Linda knows to set up with extra space." As he walked away, Sarah smiled, remembering that day 6 months ago when a CEO had chosen to see potential instead of problems, and how that choice had changed not just her life, but her understanding of what true leadership looked like. Sometimes the most important interviews happen not in boardrooms, but in moments of crisis when we choose compassion over convenience, understanding over rigid adherence to rules. And sometimes, the person we almost turn away becomes exactly the person we need most. Not in spite of their challenges, but because of how those challenges have shaped their character, wisdom, and capacity to care for others.